Hi guys and welcome back. In this video we're going to be learning about patching and mocking. Let's start by creating a new file that we're going to call page.py, and here we're going to import the requests module. So if you don't have it installed, just go over to your settings, open your project interpreter settings and install the requests module. This module here just allows us to get a web page and look at its contents basically. So it allows us to make web requests. Now that that's installed, we can go to OK, and this should disappear there, the red line. And then we're going to create a class that I'm going to call page requester, and it's going to be a very useless class, but nonetheless it's going to allow us to learn about testing. So we're going to get the page requester class, and it has an init method. This one receives a string, a URL. We can say that this is a string there. And then it has a get method that all it does is it calls the requests module. And it gives you back the content of the response. Now, you may think that this is a useless example, but very often what you'll see is that your classes get very long. And as your classes get longer and longer, understanding them becomes naturally more difficult. There is more code to read, you have to be jumping from one place to another, and so on. So it's often a good idea to split out the code in your classes, take it out, put it inside another file, create a function for it, or potentially another class if it's necessary, and test that separately from this class. This class now, where we've taken all of the code that actually goes and gets the URL and so forth, we've taken all that into a new file, the requests module. Now this class is very simple. All we have to do is make sure that the URL is stored in the class and that the get method calls the requests module. So we can go ahead and write our tests for it. Let's create a new file that I'm going to call test page.py. And once again, we will begin by doing from unit test, import test case. We will do from unit test.mock, import patch, and from page, import page requester. Then we'll create our test page requester, which is a test case. And we're going to set up the method here to do self.page is page requester, and we will pass in google.com. Just a simple page there. Now, what we want to do is we want to make sure that when we call self.page.get, it calls the requests module. We do not want to have a test that actually gets google.com. Here's why. So we'll say test make request, and we're going to do with patch of requests.get as mocked get. And what this does is it goes into the requests module, looks at, or rather it goes into the requests import, which is what we've imported here. And if we use requests.get anywhere in our application, it's going to be replaced by whatever this patch function returns. So it's going to get replaced by a mock. And I'll show you what a mock is in just a moment. So what we want to do once we've patched requests.get is we want to say self.page.get. And then mockedget.assert called. All right, so now let's get into why we're doing this. When we write the requests module, so whoever wrote the requests module, he wrote tests for the requests module. You don't have to use the requests code and make sure that it works. If we write this test without patching requests.get, really we're testing two things. The first thing we're doing is we are testing that our function calls the requests module, because that's really what it does. But the second thing is we're testing that the requests module also works because we're actually interacting with the requests module. If you patch it, you are never interacting with the requests module. All you're doing is you're interacting with this mock that we're creating. That means that there is a separation between the requests module code that we are not testing and our code that we are testing. And on the line between those two is this mock. By checking that we are calling the requests module, that is everything we need to check, because the requests module is tested separately and we don't have to test it ourselves. Now, there is a thing that our method does that isn't tested by that one, and it is that it gets the content of the response. So we do have to write a test for this specific thing. Make sure that whatever we get back, we are accessing the content property of that. This mock here that we've used does not have a content property. And I will show you exactly how I know that. Going to type response is that, and we'll see print response. Now we're going to run this test here. So we'll right click it and press run these tests. And you see that what you get back when you do this patch is something called a magic mock. This is part of the Python unit test module. Whenever you access anything inside the magic mock, it will allow you to access it. So for example, you can say print response dot Rolf. Let's run this again. And notice that it is totally okay with it. And what you get back is another magic mock. When you do magic mock dot anything, the magic mock automatically creates the property and gives it the value of another magic mock. So really, with this test here, we're not testing that we get a valid content thing from our response. We are not checking that this stuff here is working. We're just checking that we are getting something from the requests module. If you want to patch this and make it return something that has a content property so that you can then make sure that you are getting the content property back, you have to do that separately without using the magic mock. So let's write a test for content returned. And here we need to define an inner class that is going to be a fake response. So we're going to say requests module. When I call the get method, instead of returning the real response from google.com, give me this fake response. So we will define the init method here, and we will say self.content is hello. And this is a fake response that we've used in here. And now we'll say with patch requests.get, and the return value is going to be a fake response. And what this does is when you do requests.get like this, you're going to get back a fake response object that we've created just now. That means that when you do result equals self.page.get, what's happening is self.page.get is calling requests.get, and this stuff here will be your fake response object. And then you're accessing the content property of your fake response. So you can do self assert equal result should be hello. And we can do fake content is hello and put it in here. All right. Now this will pass as well if we run it. And we have successfully faked what the method here is going to return. This is a very common pattern where you fake the return value of something. We've learned how to fake the return value of a function and also how to make sure that it was called. There's a lot more on patching and mocking in the official documentation that I have linked in the resources section of this lecture. So please do give it a read if you want to do more on this. There is a lot to know, and it can get a little bit confusing when you start to play with different, side effects and other things that these mocks can do, and when you start using mocks instead of magic mocks, and so on. So if you want to do more testing, I would recommend looking at that and potentially also going deeper into learning about unit testing in Python. There is quite a lot to do. Thanks for joining me in this video. I'll see you on the next one.